You were born free, free to create, free to imagine, free to expand. But somewhere along the way, someone, or perhaps you yourself, built invisible walls around you. Walls made of inherited beliefs, silent fears, stories repeated so often they became truths. And now, you live inside this cell, looking at the world through the bars of your self-image. An image that isn't you. An image that's merely a distorted reflection, shaped by past experiences, by voices that told you, you can't. You're not capable. This isn't for people like you. But what if I told you this prison has no lock, that the bars are made of smoke, that the key has always been in your pocket? Your self-image is your own prison, but it can also be your liberation. Because everything you can achieve begins with who you believe you are. Think of Thomas Edison. Before he could illuminate the world, he had to illuminate his own mind. 1,000 attempts, 1,000 failures, 1,000 voices telling him it was impossible. But Edison didn't see himself as a failure. He saw himself as a discoverer. Each attempt was just another way of learning how not to do things. He wasn't trapped in the image of a man who fails, but in the vision of a man who creates. And this vision set him free. The same thing happened with Henry Ford. When everyone said the automobile was a luxury for the few, he saw himself as the man who would put the world on wheels. It didn't matter that he had no capital, no support, no precedent. The image he carried within himself was more real than any external obstacle, and it was this image that shaped reality. You might think these stories belong to geniuses, visionaries, people different from you, but that's the most dangerous lie you've ever been told. The truth is, the difference isn't talent, luck, or circumstance. The difference is in the mental image. It's in how you see yourself when you close your eyes. It's in the narrative you repeat to yourself every day. If you see yourself as small, the world will become too big for you. If you see yourself as weak, every challenge will seem like a wall. But if you see yourself as capable, worthy, powerful, no matter how big the obstacle, you will find a way. Because the human mind is a projector, and life is just the screen. What you project internally will sooner or later manifest externally. And here's the crux. Most people live as if their image were fixed, immutable, determined by the past. But the image is malleable. It can be redesigned, rebuilt, reinvented. And when you change your image, you change everything. It changes the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you decide. It changes the opportunities you perceive, the people you attract, the risks you accept. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, said that the greatest discovery of his life was not steel, but the power of the human mind when it believes in itself. He saw ordinary men become extraordinary simply because they dared to see themselves differently. And that's exactly what you need to do now. Dare to see yourself as you've never seen yourself before. But be careful. Changing your image isn't an empty act of desire. It's not repeating phrases in the mirror and waiting for the universe to do the rest. It's deep, daily, disciplined work. It's confronting every thought that says, I can't, and replacing it with, I can and I will. It's acting like the person you want to be, even before you fully believe you already are. It's embracing your identity before it feels comfortable. Walt Disney was called a naive dreamer, a man with no sense of reality. But he carried within himself an entire park before any bricks were laid. He saw castles where others saw empty lots. He heard laughter where others heard silence. And because he saw himself as the creator of this world, he built it. The image came before the work. It always does. And here's the truth that few have the courage to face. If your life today isn't what you'd like, it's because your self-image doesn't allow it to be different. You can change jobs, move cities, change relationships, but if you don't change your image, everything will repeat itself because you always act according to who you believe yourself to be. This is the prison, but it is also the way out. Of course, Cleverton, let's keep the cinematic flow exactly where we left off, without losing the rhythm or intensity. You weren't born to live inside a mold. Molds are for statues, and statues don't breathe, don't dream, don't create. You were born to be movement, expansion, transformation. But as long as your self-image remains small, limited, conditioned by what has already happened, you will continue repeating the same patterns like a scratched record playing the same sad melody. The mind is like an old movie projector. The film it displays is your self-image. And no matter how many times you change the screen, if the film roll is the same, the story doesn't change. That's why so many people change jobs, cities, relationships, but still feel the same emptiness. They change the screen, but not the film. Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, said that what the human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. conceive. But understand, it's not enough to conceive. You have to believe. And believing isn't repeating words. It's feeling. It's living. It's acting as if it were already true. It's stepping into the shoes of the new version of yourself before it exists in the physical world. Consider Abraham Lincoln. Before becoming president, he lost elections, failed businesses, and faced personal tragedies. Anyone might have seen himself as a failure, but Lincoln carried within him the image of a leader, of a man who would serve the nation. This image kept him standing when everything around him tried to tear him down. He didn't wait for the world to recognize him before recognizing himself. He recognized himself first. And that's what you need to do. Stop waiting for the world to validate who you are before you believe. Believing comes first, always. It's belief that shapes action, and action that shapes destiny. But here's the challenge. The image you have of yourself was built over years. It was shaped by words you heard as a child, by unfair comparisons, by failures you interpreted as proof of inadequacy. It was reinforced by every time you sabotaged yourself, by every time you gave up too soon, by every time you hid from risk. And now, this image seems so real that you mistake it for the truth. But it's not the truth. It's just a story, and stories can be rewritten. You must become the author of your own narrative. You must take the pen from fear and hand it over to courage. You must consciously and deliberately decide what new image you will carry, and then you must nurture it every day as if it were an inextinguishable flame. This requires discipline. It requires guarding your thoughts like a guardian watches over the gates of a city. Every thought that enters shapes the image. If you allow thoughts of doubt, scarcity, and inability to take hold, they will erode the foundation of the new identity you're building. But if you feed your mind with images of victory, abundance, and capability, that identity will strengthen until it becomes unshakable. Remember that the mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined with intensity and emotion. That's why athletes visualize victory before competing. That's why visionary entrepreneurs already live success before achieving it. They're programming their internal projector to show a new movie, and inevitably, life begins to reflect that movie. You can do the same, but you need to decide now, because every day you live trapped in the old image is a day stolen from the life you could be living. And time doesn't restore what was lost. The question is, will you keep looking at the bars, or will you walk through them? You can spend your entire life trying to change the world around you, but if you don't change the world within you, nothing really changes. It's like trying to change your reflection in the mirror without touching your own face. The image you have of yourself is the invisible mold that defines every choice, every reaction, every step you take. And as long as that mold is small, your life will be small. Most people live as prisoners of a past that no longer exists. They carry scars like chains, and every time they try to move forward, they feel the weight of those chains pulling them back. But the past only has power if you keep looking at it. At any moment, you can turn your face to the future and decide that history will be different. Think of Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years behind physical bars, but he never allowed his mind to be imprisoned. He saw himself as a free man long before he stepped out of prison, and it was this internal image that kept him alive, whole, and capable of leading a nation. Freedom begins in the mind, always. You need to understand that self-image isn't just a psychological concept. It's a creative force. It determines what you tolerate, what you pursue, what you believe you deserve. If you see yourself as destined for mediocrity, you'll find ways to confirm that belief every day. But if you see yourself as capable of creating abundance, you'll find opportunities where others only see barriers. And here's the secret. You don't have to wait until you feel ready to change that image. Action comes before belief. You act like the person you want to be, and the belief falls into place. It's like an actor putting on a costume, and little by little begins to feel like the character. The difference is that in this case, the character is the best version of you, and the stage is your life. Look at Elon Musk. Before he built rockets, he already saw himself as someone capable of taking humanity to other planets. habits. Before he created revolutionary electric cars, he already saw himself as someone who would change the automotive industry. He didn't wait for the world to believe him, he believed him first. But believing isn't closing your eyes and waiting. It's opening your eyes and acting every day as if the impossible were inevitable. It's waking up early when no one's looking. It's studying when no one's demanding it. It's persisting when no one's applauding. It's keeping your vision alive, even when everything around you seems to say it won't work. And when you start living like this, something changes. People notice. Opportunities appear. The world begins to respond to the new image you project, because life is an echo. It returns what you send out. So ask yourself, what image are you projecting right now? Is it the image of someone hoping things will get better, or someone deciding things will get better? Is it the image of someone who sees themselves as a victim of their circumstances, or someone who creates their own circumstances? The answer to these questions lies not in the words you say, but in the actions you take. Because the true picture isn't the one you describe, it's the one you live. Conscious reprogramming of self-image begins with an act of silent rebellion, refusing to accept as final what has been imposed upon you. It's looking within and saying, this is not my final form. I am not this story I've been told. I am not the inevitable result of my past. You need to understand that the mind is moldable. Each repeated thought is like a chisel striking the stone, sculpting the figure you believe yourself to be. And if you don't take control of that chisel, others will do it for you. The media, other people's opinions, family expectations, failures you couldn't interpret. The first step is clarity. Clarity about who you want to be, not just what you want to have. Because possessions, titles, and achievements are consequences. The cause is always identity. Ask yourself, if I were already the person I want to be, how would I think? How would I act? How would I react to problems? And then start acting that way now, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels like faking it. It's not pretending, it's rehearsal. And every great role requires rehearsal before the premiere. Michael Jordan didn't become the greatest basketball player simply because he practiced shooting. He practiced his mindset. He saw himself as a winner before he won. He entered the court with the poise, confidence, and energy of someone who already knew the outcome. And this internal image shaped every move, every decision, every reaction. You need to do the same with your life. Create an internal script so vivid that your mind can't tell whether it's imagination or reality, and then live according to that script until it inevitably becomes real. But here's the point that separates those who transform their lives from those who only dream: consistency. It's not enough to create a new image for a day or a week. You need to sustain it until it completely replaces the old one. This means monitoring thoughts, words, and actions. It means breaking habits that reinforce the old identity. It means surrounding yourself with people, environments, and information that nourish the new vision. And yes, there will be resistance. The old image will try to pull you back, like a rubber band that won't break. You'll hear the voice inside saying, this isn't you. You're forcing it. But that voice isn't the truth. It's just the echo of the old you trying to survive. This is when you need to be stronger than ever, because if you resist, if you keep moving forward, the day will come when the new image will be as natural as breathing. And on that day, the world around you will begin to change almost magically. It's not magic, it's the law.
The law of correspondence. The external world reflects the internal world. When you see yourself as worthy of opportunities, you begin to notice them where they previously went unnoticed. When you see yourself as capable, you begin to act with more courage. And courage opens doors that fear kept closed. When you see yourself as valuable, you stop accepting crumbs and start demanding feast. And it all starts inside, always inside. There comes a point when you have to decide that you're no longer going to live as a hostage to your own mind. That's the moment of rupture. The moment you look at the old image and say, it's over. I'm not this anymore. I'm no longer going to shrink myself to fit into small spaces. I'm no longer going to ask permission to exist. The music swells, your heart races, and you feel something inside you about to break. Not in the sense of destruction, but in the sense of liberation. It's as if the walls of your inner prison are beginning to crack, and light is beginning to seep through the cracks. You realize you don't have to wait for fear to disappear to take action. Fear isn't a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're on the right path, because everything worthwhile requires crossing the barrier of discomfort. Look at anyone who has changed the world. Steve Jobs, who was ousted from his own company before returning to build it into an empire. Oprah Winfrey, who rose from an abusive childhood to become one of the most influential women on the planet. Helen Keller, who, blind and deaf, learned to speak to the world. None of them waited for conditions to be perfect. They created them. And you can do the same. But you need to start now. You need to act as if you were already the person you want to be. You need to talk like them, walk like them, decide like them. You need to surround yourself with symbols that reinforce this new identity. Books, environments, people, habits. Because every detail matters. The way you dress, how you organize your space, how you respond to a challenge, it all communicates to your mind who you believe you are. And the mind, obediently, shapes reality to confirm that belief. You're not just changing your thoughts, you're changing your frequency. You're changing the playing field. And when that happens, things that once seemed unattainable begin to come closer. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And here's the final truth about this prison. No one will open the door for you. There won't be a magical moment when everything becomes easy. The key has been in your hand from the start. And every step you take toward the new image is a turn of that key. So turn now. You already know the prison is within. You already know the key is in your hand. Now there's only one choice left. Use that key or continue to pretend you don't see it. There is no tomorrow for those who truly decide to change. Tomorrow is just a fancy excuse to stay the same. Transformation begins the moment you say enough and act as if there's no going back. Because there isn't. Once you see your own prison, you can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. And here's the truth that separates those who change from those who merely dream. Action. Not impulsive action, but deliberate, consistent, relentless action. Action born of a vision so clear that nothing can erase it. Imagine yourself a year from now. You look back and see two possibilities. Either you're living the life you started building today, or you're in exactly the same place, telling the same stories, justifying the same limitations. Which of these images do you want to be real? Life doesn't wait. Time doesn't stop. And every day you put it off is a day that never comes back. Remember all those who dared to change their image, and in doing so, changed the world. They weren't more special, smarter, or luckier than you. They simply decided they would no longer live as prisoners. And they stuck to that decision until the world had no choice but to bow to the new reality they created. You can do the same. You must do the same. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who will be touched by your transformation. Because when you free yourself, you become a beacon. And lighthouses don't just save themselves, they guide others to safe shore. So close your eyes now and see yourself as you want to be. See it in detail. Feel it. Breathe in that image. And when you open your eyes, act as if it were already true. Because deep down, it already is. Your self-image can be your prison, but from today onward, it will be your freedom. And when they ask what's changed, you won't have to explain. They'll see.